And from Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly, it's your girl Tech Life Steph.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech, aka Mo Money. My daughter started her first job today, so that means more money in her pocket,
Nice.
means more money in my pocket because less money I got to spend on her. So looking forward to that. Seeing her face when they give her check minus all the taxes. So
Where's she
that'll be
working?
interesting. McDonald's.
Okay.
I don't know why. I gave her
Listen,
look.
hey, if it was good enough for Calvin,
Yeah,
it's good enough.
really.
Well, the question is, was it good enough for Calvin?
I'm saying it was good enough for Calvin.
Folks
So
out there
yeah,
clowning Calvin for working.
Listen,
so yeah,
Calvin was getting that bread.
yeah. So yeah, like I was gonna say, I was giving her my game. It's like, all right, you need to go around all these little shops and find the one to where you can relax and chill. Do some work here and there, but your first job, get used to how jobs going versus going to fast food, getting thrown into the fire by people who want their
Literally.
money and want
Mhm.
their money now, and you back there sweating behind an assembly line putting sandwiches together. I'm like, all right, look, I
Listen,
done told you, you done made the decision.
you could have been working at
Go
the
do your,
library.
you
You
could
know
have been
what?
working. Yep.
You got to go through it to learn. Sometimes,
Hmm.
sometimes the best teacher is experience. You just got to go through it sometimes to find out, you don't know what you hate until you actually experience it
I
sometimes.
almost had a job at Wendy's. I'm not going to get into why I didn't take the job because I don't want to malign Wendy's. But yeah, needless to say, I did not take. I was going to wear. I had my little navy pants. You had to have navy chinos to work
Hmm.
there. I had my navy pants, but yeah, after it was just some stuff had went down, and I was like, nah.
If y'all remind me, I will tell a story about this stuff and what my child is going through right now in the after party, which reminds me as well. I probably should tell people how they can actually get the after party. So if you would like to become a patron, if you'd like to support the Tech John, you can head over to patreon.com/, the Tech John, the Tech JAWN. And anyone who does that, you get some additional benefits. For example, you get to actually listen to the show without ads. That's one of the benefits you can get, depending on which tier you get. Everyone who signs up, become a Patreon, can actually watch our after party and our live stream. So you get to watch us do the show live. So we actually have a little, few additional conversations, and we talk about stuff. Just it may not be tech all the time, but we talk about stuff in the after party. So if you're interested in that, head over to patreon.com/, the Tech John. So with that being said, Terrance, this was a really interesting story that you put in for our first story. I believe it was an article out of the Atlantic, and I think the way you titled it was "What's Holding Consumers Back from Fully Adopting EVs." And I have to be honest, when I first saw just your title, it's like, oh, I know, because them Johns is expensive. But then as I'm reading through the article and looking at some of the supporting information, it's like, well, at the top end, like that new 2025 Escalade that'll be coming out next year. Well, at the top end of that's really expensive compared to a regular Escalade. But for a lot of cars, they really are price competitive with their full fuel combustion engine counterparts. So the reasons that
I don't
people
know.
are,
I don't know about that, but the reason why I thought the article was interesting because I skimmed through most of it looking for whatever the reason the author thought that the one thing was holding electric vehicles back, and to too long didn't read. He says, according to some guy he interviewed, who's now a leader in the electric vehicle market, he said there's not enough public access to charging, whether it be free, paid, whatever the case may be. There's just still not a lot. Now, he says when he got started in the game, it was 2012, I think he mentioned. And, a lot of people had that range anxiety. You got to pack all this extra stuff. You got to go to old school map way and map out your trip. If you're taking a road trip, now that's kind of the thing of the past, but still, you still got to hunt around and find a public charging spot if it's working, if it's compatible with your vehicle. And according to this author, the guy he interviewed, let me find this guy's name so I don't keep calling him the guy, Bill Furrow. is the guy, and he now is, I forget he's founder of EV Session, a data platform that tracks charger reliability, admits that those developers are not enough for what's coming. Not enough meaning the public access to the charging stations. So he believes we ain't got enough charging stations around here for people to fully adopt EVs. But I don't know if that's the reason.
No, it's not.
So I
It's
wanted
not.
to pose. So I wanted to pose the question to you all. You know, what do you think the reason why America is not gun ho to where everybody is beating the doors down to make these manufacturers make more electric vehicles?
Until you can charge your vehicle as quickly as you can fill up your tank, people are not going to adopt in mass electric vehicles. And that's
Mhm.
just the bottom line. Even at a fast charger, that my sister has a Tesla, and even at a Tesla fast charger, you're sitting there for at least 15 minutes.
Mhm.
At minimum 15 minutes. I
Mhm.
ain't got that kind of time. And if I can't get out my car and plug that charger in and stand there for the two and a
2 to
half
3
minutes
minutes.
it would take
Yeah.
to fill my tank up, I ain't doing it. I just ain't doing it. And that's just the bottom line. I mean, we went on vacation last year and she drove. We went to Martha's Vineyard. And when I tell you it was cool because it was vacation, so we weren't in any
Chilling.
particular hurry.
Right.
But we stopped probably every 2 hours ish, and we had to wait 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes each time. And when I tell you, that added that it almost damn near doubled the length of the trip, number one.
Mhm.
And it's just like, who wants to do that? Like, even if
Right.
you're just chilling and you can stop at some little cute little roadside thing to, what, ain't nobody got time for that, man. Ain't nobody got time for that.
So
Right.
I would offer this counterpoint because I am the same, or at least I was the same way. I think that I've started changing because I've really started researching this, and I have a lot of partners who have EVs now. So I write in them regularly. I talk about them darn near every week, on other shows. And the thing that we are going to have to get used to is that is not going to be like going to the gas station. It's going to be different. For EVs, you don't need gas stations any longer. You're going to go to the grocery store. There's a supercharger. You just charge up while you're in the grocery store. You go to get your nails done. You just charge up because there's a supercharger in the parking lot where the nail tech is. You go to the barbershop. You just charge up at the barbershop because there's plugs there. So when you're on the road trips and you have run down to where you've only got 5% less, and your Tesla or whatever vehicle is telling you need to go to this next one, here's the places you can go, on your trip and still get there. And when you have to fully charge up, then you might be waiting that half hour. But one of the things that I've come to understand is that we think that we always are filling up to maximum from E. And that's very, very rarely the case. What's usually happening when you're doing a road trip, and this is maybe more so with Tesla than everything else because they've been doing it the longest and their chargers tend to work all the time, is that you don't charge up to full. You charge up to where you have enough to get to the next charger on your destination. So
which also makes no sense to me. And it's just like, I don't want to have to think about plugging my car in every time I pull into a parking lot just because I'm running into the damn Trader Joe's. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And like I said, that's just clearly just me. But I don't.
No, it's not you.
And I want to be able to run my Jawn down to the gas light coming on, go and spend 3 minutes, fill it back up, and go. And to your point, Rob, you're absolutely right. The Tesla anyway will be like flashing lights when you're getting low. It only wants you to go down about 20%. You don't need to charge it all the way. And even that battery management starts getting like, it's work. It's too much work when I can just put the gas pump in the car, click the handle, and be done in 2 minutes. Like, you're not going to convince me until the process is as seamless as pumping gas. I just ain't doing it.
So this was an experiment that I actually went through probably a year, 18 months ago. I can't remember exactly when I did it. And it's like, I want you to map every time you drive beyond the range of what your gas tank can get you. How often do you do that? And for me, when I did it, I did it from, like I said, whenever it was through. It must have been about 18 months ago because I did it
When you
up
say
until.
beyond the range, what do you like on
So
driving
like
on
like
fumes or
currently
something?
like currently on my truck right now, if I fill it up, it'll tell me exactly how many miles I have until I have to fill up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was challenged to do was I want you to track every single time you leave your home and drive further than that, so that you have no choice. You have a full tank of gas and you drive until you run out of gas and you need to get to another gas station on the trip. How often do you do that? So I tracked this for 6 months. I did it twice. I left my house 2 entire times where I had to actually, because I went on trips. It's basically taking baby girl to college and back, and then going to visit and coming back. That I actually had to fill my truck up with gas, before I got back to my house. So it's like, if I'm being realistic, and my driving habits don't really change, like, okay, I want to go get this EV and now I'm going to do road trips every fourth day. If that were to be the case, then maybe it doesn't make sense. But for me, if I'm driving that far, that little, then as long as I get back home, it doesn't matter, because I leave the house every day with a full charge. With an EV. And that's something that you also have to think about. One of my partners, literally, he lives in a townhome with a shared parking space. He actually had to, jump through some hoops because he was the first, like, in his county to do this in a parking lot. But he actually got his assigned parking space with an EV charger in it. And he was like, I just don't worry about gas anymore, because when I get home, he has a Ford F-150 Lightning. It's like, as soon as I get out the truck, I just grab the thing and put it on and walk in the house. And when I leave the next day, it's full and I can drive literally, 3 states away before I have to worry about putting, additional charge on it. So,
you're taking in that case, that makes sense for him. But think about people in New York. Think about these highly suburban areas, to where, of course, New York people don't drive as much, but the people who do in the area, they still want to have the same, like Stephanie mentioned, same sort of access as a gas station. Now, I actually drove a hybrid this weekend, and it was a minivan, actually, which I'm surprised I even got behind the wheel of a minivan, but that's another conversation for another day. But I was surprised at how the experience was driving an electric vehicle. In this case, it was a hybrid, but you still kind of got the feel of the electric vehicle, the positive, to where it was gas. So I still didn't have to worry about, where I'm going to park, where I'm going to, get gas. But there was one time to where we went out to eat, and, in the parking lot, the parking spaces was full, with the exception of a couple of the electric vehicle charging areas. Pulled in front ways, plugged it up, went in to eat, came out, and I had some charge there. So again, it was a hybrid, so I really wasn't tripping. I still had the gas as a backup. But that, in my opinion, and this is not necessarily a weird opinion, I still believe that even though prices are coming down on electric vehicles, I still think the electric vehicles are ugly, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people, for the price you have to pay for an electric vehicle, they still are not as attractive as your average vehicle. And I'm not talking about people who drive Mustangs and Camaros and Corvettes and Porsches and things like that. I'm talking about if you look at how attractive to me the newer Honda Accords look and the new Toyota Corollas look, some of these mid-range average person vehicles that they drive, versus the only other comparable car or even SUV, now that they're starting to make more of those, is a Tesla. I can't think of any other electric vehicle out there that is equally as attractive as, like, your average Honda, Toyota, some of these cars that you see around
You
everywhere.
mean no vehicle, high end or otherwise? Or are you just talking about mid-range?
I'm thinking about mid-range.
Because I'm like, them electric BMWs are fire. There's electric Audis that are fire.
I'm talking below. I'm talking about
so
what
average cost.
You're talking like 45 or less.
Right.
45 or less. Okay. Name me one vehicle that's attractive as some of those vehicles that I mentioned, and I can't think of any of them.
I don't even even think Teslas are aesthetically pleasing. I don't like the body style of any Tesla, even the SUV with the X-wing doors and all that. Like, I don't like anything about the aesthetics of the Tesla. And there just isn't, to your point, there just is not enough. I mean, clearly, I'm not an environmentalist because I don't care about saving the environment.
Like stuff ain't hugging no trees.
There's not enough of a selling feature to any EV right now to make me buy it, especially considering I cannot charge it the same way I can fill up my tank on my car. Like I said, when that happens, and I think it will, you will eventually be able to just, you know what I mean, go to a quote unquote gas station, a charging station that looks like a gas station that, you know, they'll perfect quick charging or whatever, and it might only take 5 minutes or something like that. You know, and then there's a car that is aesthetically pleasing, then I'll be like, all right, whatever. But that's gonna be a wow. It's gonna be a wow for me.
And I still can't can't figure out why these car companies, I think I know the reason why, because they're too big and they can't turn on a dime like some of these other companies can. But I don't understand why, you know, think whatever the average American vehicle, what's out there, think of like a Chevy Malibu. Why can't they just make an electric version of a Chevy Malibu? Why is these, especially like the American companies, GM, Ford, you know, they got the Ford Lightning F-150 that's easily 80, 90 grand. And they got the Cadillac Lyric that's easily 100 and so grand. Like Rob mentioned, the Escalade, which is easy 100 plus grand for these vehicles. Why are the American companies specifically not saying, what's the popular car that everybody's driving? Chevy Blazer, boom, electric. You know, somebody, Wayne mentioned the Mustang Mach-E, but even that, you kind of, does that look, that ain't all that attractive. You know, it's like, why are these companies, it seems like they're holding back on just flooding the market with electric vehicles? Is it because they're too big and they can't just spin up a new
well,
plant?
It might have been for the reasons that because you put your second article with this story was the fact that GM and Ford are now going to be using Tesla charging standards, so you know they'll have access. That might have been it. So we might see this going forward, where just your average tourist, you know, now can be electric or not, you know, based on whatever. I think they may have been holding back because they knew they didn't have the right network of charging stations yet, and now that they do, you know what I mean, we might start seeing a lot more, you know, EV options.
I threw that in there because that is a big part, because the original story from the Atlantic, the author was basically saying that you know, consternation is because if you don't have a Tesla, you don't know, you can't just trust that the map is telling you that you have this amount of range and you can get to this place, because you get to the place and they don't have any functioning chargers
or a regular cars parked in the spot, you know, all the other challenges, right?
So like I said, one of my partners, he's actually got the F-150 Lightning, and he says it you know, he went on it, you know, the first year he had it, he went on a trip you know, somewhere you know, down to the ocean in Maryland, and it was like, he said he never got to the point where he was sweating, but he was like, I had to make sure that when I do get to this charger, I'm gonna sit here for the half hour and charge all the way up, or get me to like 90%, because I don't want to get down to the beach, and even though they're telling me that they got 5 chargers, 4 of them Johns don't work, and then, you know, somebody gets there before me and I gotta wait until they move their car and those kind of things. But that basically, as of relatively recently, like this weekend, is kind of going away, because now Ford and GM have signed on with Tesla to where they're going to use Tesla's chargers. So Tesla has clearly the Tesla superchargers. You know, Tesla had no choice. The company had no choice but to go out and put charging stations out there, because if I can't charge my car up any place but my house, I simply can never have one of these cars. So they had to go out and put their foot into doing these superchargers pretty much everywhere. They're all over the country at this point. And they always, I don't want to say they always work, but they generally work very well as compared to the other standards, to where it is not uncommon that it'll say, you know, on your map, there's 6 chargers here, and you drive up and 2 of them work.
which I don't
And
understand.
even the ones
They
like
just
those other,
janky.
and they take long as
They take
fuck.
longer,
Like
and
long
they
as
take
fuck.
longer.
It's
So
crazy.
GM and now Ford and now GM, they're saying, nah, we're just gonna go ahead and roll with Tesla. And if that happens, you're probably going to see Honda and and Toyota. They're going to probably come around too, because you know it is a selling point. It's like,
But I
if
don't
I
understand.
know I can go and get gas at this place, but I ain't sure if I can go and get it at this other place. I'm saying gas. If I know I can go and charge up at this place, but don't know if I can at the other place, then maybe I'll get this car where I never am going to have an issue,
But
because
I
the
don't
Tesla. Go
understand.
ahead.
I don't understand why GM, these monster companies that are the cornerstone of America, and they've been around for
Cornerstone.
over 100 years, and they
Mhm.
make all these cars. Why are they pussyfooting around? And they waited and they waited, and now they got to write deals when I'm pretty sure the people in the boardrooms of
Somebody said
for,
something. And they were
they
like, y'all better get on this EV trend now. But then, like I think it probably what you said though, as far as like turning on a dime and too big to fail kind of.
Yeah, but it's been 10 years though. What y'all
Yeah.
waiting on?
Well, no. Here's the thing. The thing is, they waited till 6 months
So
ago
somebody
to
else
actually
did
get
it.
serious about it. I'm being facetious. Has been a little bit longer than that. But Tesla, when Tesla started, okay, we really actually are a real car company. We have to have charging stations out there for people to be able to charge these cars up. So they started well over a decade ago putting superchargers out there. Tesla is not GM. It is not Ford, but it is not a small company. GM and Ford, without spending literally billions of dollars real quick and in a hurry, they simply just can't catch up to where Tesla is. So, who knows? They may actually get behind, some other not other technologies, but other companies that aren't named Tesla, but they're just going to have to license that charging technology from Tesla.
Again, what they waiting on?
Sorry ass risk averse CEOs that didn't want to take the chance and wanted to sit back and be comfortable and complacent and rest on their laurels and not get out here and innovate the way they should have been innovating.
Like they
10
say
years
they
ago.
innovate with these ugly cars that they're
That's all
coming
it
out
is.
with.
That's all it is.
No, because
Like-
we know that people at companies is like, how can we make all the money right now? They ain't necessarily thinking about the future, because one thing you will say that GM is not, one thing you will say that Ford is not. They ain't thinking about 10 years from now. They thinking about 10 months from now. That's how they operate. What
But
can
they
we sell
still-
most right now? Because GM, everybody thinks Tesla is like the first EV that was out. No, GM, I can't remember the name of it, but GM way back in the day had the first commercially available EV. Now they didn't sell any of them, but they did have it.
And I think that's another conspiracy theory. I think these major car companies are in bed too much with these oil companies, and them oil companies was like, cut that off. Cut that smooth
there you
off.
go. There you go. There you go.
So
there you go.
So
that's the reason right there.
There is a lot of that. But like I said, I thought it was going to be purely because the cost.
That's the reason.
And it's like, no, like I said, at the top end, because I've been looking, I think y'all know, I'll tell the listeners, but I've been driving Escalade since 2007. I don't really desire to drive anything else. It's the best SUV I've ever been in. And there is, like I said, the 2025 coming out, but a base model Escalade you can get for like 83, 85. They're saying, because they haven't released any pricing yet on that Escalade, it'll be called the Escalade IQ. So GM is keeping the IQ branding on pretty much all of the electric vehicles.
And that's another thing. Why can't it just be an Escalade? You get the gas version or you get the electric version. It's still an Escalade. Same thing with BMW. They got the BMW i this, and they got the Mercedes-Benz EQZ. Why can't it just be a Mercedes ML3 whatever, gas or electric?
Branding.
Well, but see, right now you've got the Escalade, you've got the Escalade EV, you've got the Escalade V. This is just going to be another in those, of the four. Now there's three different Escalades you can get. It'll be the fourth
feel
one.
superior.
Exactly. And a way for them to slap on an additional 20 grand for that, John, because they're saying that it's going to cost 20 to 30 more to get the Escalade, because it'll be more like an Escalade V, because they're going to have all the sensors and all the stuff that's in it in order to allow it to be an EV. Then they're going to have to charge more for it. So for me, I'm like, am I willing to pay that much more for a whip just so it's battery operated? And I don't, not yet.
And I
Not
think these
yet.
car companies do that on purpose, and they price the people right out and say, I'll just get the gas. And they're like, yes.
Right.
So, but what are they saying? 2020, was it 2030? Is that when they're supposed to be completely switched? Or maybe it's 2035 when the law says you have to be completely switched over. But I
So
think their
that's
plans are for Buick,
so
I
that
know. Go ahead.
yes, it's 2030. So that was another point I was getting at. We were talking about how these car companies want the money and they want it now versus the future. But it seems like they're talking out both sides of their necks, because GM was one of the companies like, we fully commit that all of our electric vehicles going forward are going to be fully this and that by 2030. It's like, all right, well, you're clearly, and you watching Tesla like a hawk. So clearly you are looking into the future, but it's like what you're saying versus what you're doing, it ain't caught up yet. And I'm just trying to figure out, all right, well, how long y'all gonna wait for Tesla to keep on? And then you gonna have to partner with them, when I'm pretty sure back door, y'all was talking mad trash about Tesla. Oh, this, and now y'all got a partnership with them to, like you in this other story, to sign on to their charging stations. It's like, all right, well, y'all was talking cash crazy about them, but now y'all got to come to the table. It's like, what y'all doing?
I honestly think
Bullshitting.
that GM in particular was not worried about somebody buying a Tesla versus buying a Malibu. What they are worried about is somebody buying an F-150 as compared to buying a Silverado. That is problematic for GM.
What they waiting on?
Well, and
when
that's
that
the problem. It's
F-150,
being
well, they ain't.
short-sighted.
They moving now, so they're
still-
they're behind Ford, but they're not as far behind Ford as everybody is behind Tesla. Like I said, I think that F-150, because to your point, Stephanie, you don't like how they look. Terrance, you don't necessarily like how they look. Look at the F-150. You may, unless you really just in the F-150, you probably wouldn't even notice that it was one unless you see the lights or you see the little lightning and the electric symbol on it. Or you see somebody open up the front. You wouldn't know.
I'm talking about
like a regular truck.
I'm talking about mass adoption. Now, everybody and their mama drives a pickup, but that still ain't mass adoption. The point I wanted to bring up, which this original story was, why hasn't mass adoption happened around electric vehicles? And I still think because they ugly. I'm not saying if the F-150 is ugly. I'm not saying the Silverado is ugly, but you think of your average car, the Volt and the Bolt and the Prius, and them things are still ugly after all these years. And it's like, what are y'all doing?
Y'all can't come up with a better Prius.
The Prius, it's like, yeah, my sister had a Prius back in the day before it was even, before it was like kind of even cool to have a Prius. She got one. It's like, what are you doing? It's like you're literally driving around. Like, look at one of these cars that look like it's from Demolition Man, the original one. It's like you should look like you're driving a bullet. But that's Prius. I think that we're to the point now to where they're going to have to start making them look attractive and look like regular cars, because they ain't got no choice. It's like people, if someone can go and say, I want to buy a car that doesn't look like an EV, that is enough reason for you to make your cars not look like EVs, because that's I think where GM and Ford and all the other manufacturers are now. So y'all, as we get into this next story here, before I even jump into it, I just want to ask, so did either of y'all, were you affected by not being able to see stuff on Reddit today? Did you even know?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I actually do use Reddit occasionally, but I guess it's really only occasionally, because until I started researching this story, I had actually forgot that they were going to do this. So here's what the story is. Reddit, quite a few subreddits went down today. They went dark, and they're doing this because Reddit has determined back in April, I believe it was, that they are now charging.
They need to make some money.
Yeah, they need to make some money.
And
they're charging, and they're charging for API calls. And it's not because of like the little developers that are, creating really, like Apollo is one of the apps that's actually going to shut down at the end of the month because of these new charges and stuff like that. It's not because of them. It's because of Microsoft and because of Google and because of OpenAI and everybody else that was able to, freely go and get all these really, really good questions and all these really, really good answers to questions out of this giant database for free. And they was like, nah, hold up, before y'all monetize on your end and push us out of business, we're going to start making you pay for the information you're getting from us. And that's essentially what's happening. It is not inexpensive.
Which is fair.
Mm-hmm.
However, they should probably tier that in some way based
Or done
on
it a
this,
long time ago.
based on the size of the company, or something. I think there's a way to do it that would be sort of um fairly distributed over, because I mean, I don't know that I don't know that it's necessarily fair to be charging a Microsoft and an Apollo the same amount of money. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But if they're grabbing the same amount of data, then maybe it is, and maybe Apollo needs to rethink their revenue model if they're saying that they now have to go out of business because of these new charges. So I don't know. I think, and the one thing I noticed in this article was that Reddit is basically Twitterfying their revenue stream, and I'm like, and that's never a good idea because we see how well that's working out for Twitter, and it's not. So I think I don't know what the solution is for this, but I just thought it was interesting because Reddit is not an insignificant platform, and the idea that almost 8,000 subreddits went dark today and will be dark for the next 48 hours, some indefinitely, is kind of a big deal. So I think they're going to really have to get creative in their solution as opposed to just trying to unilaterally charge people money, a blanket, 24 cents or whatever the rate was for the data. They're going to have to get a little bit more creative than that, if they don't want to collapse their entire platform.
And hopefully, this sends a message to other companies out there that are just doing stuff for free. These startups, doing this stuff, and they're not really thinking about, all right, when are we going to start to, one, think about profit and how we're going to obtain that versus waiting for something like a Twitter and something like a Reddit to happen for them to be, now they got to hustle, to do this. It's like the name
Well,
of
that's the VC's problem,
Right,
throwing bags
right.
of money at these companies, indefinitely. Here's your
Hmm.
Series A, here's your Series B, here's your Series, and it's just like,
Right.
they ain't made no money yet. Why you keep
Right.
giving them money and
Mhm.
valuating them at, billion-dollar
Billions of dollars,
valuations and
right.
carrying on? Stop that. Like, stop that.
So I started really, trying to research and figure out. It's like, well, 8,000 subreddits have gone dark today in solidarity over, we are upset that you are charging people to use your service. And I'm just thinking, these are the subreddits. These are not the app developers. They're in solidarity with the app developers on the other side of it. But the people who are, I'm not going to not use Reddit because some app that I had never heard of until, like, I know Apollo is a big app. It's like the number one app for iOS users when it comes to Reddit. I get that. It is a big app that is developed by one person. But I'm not stopping using Reddit when I was never using that in the first place. Now, there may be some Apollo stands that are like, well, because I can't use the app I want to use, I'm no longer going to use Reddit. But from Reddit's standpoint, it's like, if that is the case, you were not generating revenue for us anyway. All you were doing was costing us money. So I'm in the situation where I feel bad for the developer, but I don't feel terrible, because when you basically build your thing in somebody else's sandbox, they control the sand. I put on here, it's like Fat Joe said this best: yesterday's price is not today's price. This is my example of what's happening. Somebody has a really, really big backyard, and instead of walking the sidewalk, they're on the corner. Instead of walking the sidewalk to go all the way around, you've just started to cut through a path through their backyard. Now, the people who own the house don't really say anything about that. But then they say, you know what? We have a whole lot of folks walking through this backyard. Now we have a trail back here. It's costing us money to maintain this. So if you want to continue walking through our yard, we're going to throw this little fence up. And if you want to continue cutting through, then it's going to cost you $0.25 every time you cut through. And people, oh, well, I can't believe that. And it's like, well, no, you could just walk around, because all you were doing was costing me money before. And now I'm not going to,
but the flaw in that argument, though, is you can't just walk around. You know what I mean? Like an app like Apollo that was built as a Reddit specific, API, can't just walk around if it's not going to walk through Reddit. So the idea that Reddit would have built this
Yeah, that's a fair
platform
point.
and established itself as a platform that gave this stuff away for free. That was the model at first. You know what I mean? And then to try to get people on the comeback basically years later, it's not like this is 6 months in and now Reddit has seen how popular it's gotten and like, oh wow, I guess we can actually charge people. Reddit's been around for years, you know what I mean? For a decade at this point, and hadn't been charging people this whole time. So, I'm not saying that they don't reserve the right to do that, but I'm saying you need to, I think, be more fair in how you do it and how you distribute that cost across the different developers that use your platform. That's
In
what I would
another
say.
lifetime, long time ago, one of the things I used to do was I would actually look at, acquisition targets, look at these small, you can call them mom and pop, literally the two guys and the three gals that had something working out of their garage. And it's like, ooh, that's really cool technology. Let's look and see if it makes sense to go acquire the tech or do an acqui-hire or whatever. And you would look at it. And things that I would look at is, okay, where are you pulling this data from? Oh, Reddit. Where in your cap table are you showing that if they start charging you for that how are you going to look at this? Oh yeah, your valuation is not what you think it is.
Right.
It is significantly less than you think it is. So like I said, and I'm not throwing back. I understand that, this is the way that Reddit has been doing it for years. And now all of a sudden, within a short amount of time, they're changing. But the reason they're changing is because they're saying we can't let OpenAI, we can't let Microsoft, we can't let Google and everybody else just doing all this stuff sweep over us. So we got to shut this down while they're still pulling data from our API. Microsoft can afford, what is it, 50 million, what is it, 50 million?
$12,000 for
$12,000 for 50 million API requests. That's a drop in the bucket for Microsoft. Like, sure, here you go. In fact, put us down for 50 billion. Is what Microsoft literally that's how they would look at it.
And they need to get that money from them. I'm just saying, like I said, some sort of tiered structure. Like I don't know that you necessarily need to just shit on every single developer that's using your platform. And the people are speaking. You know what I mean? It'll be interesting to see how long this boycott lasts, and if it's enough to put some real pressure on Reddit, because like I said, you can't just, like you can.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't, you know what I mean? There's a right and a wrong way to do this kind of thing. And I don't think Reddit's doing it the right way.
And going back to, the previous story, it's like, come on, man, why is it so hard for these companies to look down into the future and say, all right, we need to start taking some steps now because eventually we're going to have to start charging for this stuff. Let's sit down and figure out the best way to do this. And why
it should have been 0.02 cents per data point from the beginning.
Already.
That should have been the revenue model
Right.
at the beginning. And then nobody would have had a problem with it. And y'all would have been paid even more paid than you are right now because you would have been getting that money from the gate. It's like, that don't make no sense.
It's crazy. It's crazy how these companies just operate. But meanwhile, the American people, I got to have a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month savings because just in case a rainy day happens. But these companies will just do whatever.
Lying by the seat of their damn pants, man.
And then when a decision has to be made now, and then now you're dealing with all this versus figuring out the best way to do this years and years and years ahead of time. I think your boy was Alexis Ohanian. Was he Reddit? He was like, let me go ahead and
took his
slide
bag
out this door real quick.
Yeah. he got his bag and got his woman and was like,
let me go ahead and ride on up out of here quick.
Let me go ahead and take this $1 billion and bounce.
Yeah.
I ain't mad.
Yeah. So Apollo, I feel bad. I feel bad for the gentleman that came over because he's a solopreneur. He's basically a one-person shop that built this ridiculously good app. And it's just cheaper it's basically easier for me to just shut it down and go away than it is to try to figure all this out by myself. So I get it. But like I said, I feel bad, but I don't feel terrible because it's like you have to be real careful when you build your stuff in somebody else's sandbox. You just got to. You have no choice.
But Wayne in the chat made a point that there may have been some conversations and some lies that were told to Apollo. That some, of course, there's two sides to every story, but maybe Reddit said y'all straight, we got y'all, and then last second said nah, we ain't going on, we reneging on that deal. And I think
Well,
Apollo's
that'll
like, wait
come
a minute,
out.
man.
Yeah,
Well,
that'll come out
wait, y'all
too.
said, you
That-
know, so
What's
again,
done in the dark, as they say.
so
What's done in the
again,
dark.
Once again, business, from a business standpoint,
Cash rules
the fact that
everything
you
around.
said it don't mean jack. Did you write it in a contract? Because if Apollo got a contract that says where Reddit said he could do something, that he's got some recourse. I don't think that he does. So it's like they might have had a conversation, and you might have thought the conversation was going real well, and then this is what happens when two companies meet. They each go back into their own respective camps, and then they have additional conversations. And the fact that Apollo is run by a person, he is dealing with a massive multi-billion-dollar company. There was just some other conversations like, yeah, we ain't doing that. And that's all that was. So I'm not saying that I know this, but I'm saying I know how companies operate like that. So like I said, I feel bad. I don't necessarily feel terrible.
Cash rules everything around me.
So, I threw this one in here about WhatsApp news. They have a new feature coming out called Channels. And it was interesting to me because of a couple of things. Now, here in the United States, I think that if anybody said, well, what's the number one messaging app, they're probably going to say iMessage. But it isn't iMessage. It is actually WhatsApp Messenger. And it's not even really close. It's like WhatsApp Messenger, then Facebook Messenger, then WeChat, and then iMessage. iMessage is like fourth or fifth on the list. But WhatsApp, there's 4 billion people on the planet that have access to the internet, and 2.2 of them are using WhatsApp as their primary means, not primary, but they log into it at least once every 30 days. It's a massive app. So one of the things that WhatsApp is doing, and they've actually been doing this, over the past year and a half or so, is they're adding a lot more social media like features into their platform. And what they're doing with Channels is it gives you the ability to send out a broadcast style message to anyone who is following your channel. And, you're able to get that out. And a lot of companies were using Twitter for this. So, if you were Procter & Gamble, or if you were, any big company, or even, just a big creator, and you wanted to get a message out pretty quickly, you would just go and you would put it in your Twitter feed, and you potentially could have, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people actually see that. Twitter, we've all known are having the problem that Twitter is having. So, Facebook has really been, I should say, Meta has really been, okay, let's step in and fill the void. So they own WhatsApp, and now they're putting this Channels feature in there, which is like, it's not really a messaging type feature. This is more of a social media type feature, to where you now can send a message out to whoever is following this channel and do it as a broadcast. And this is probably going to be big. That Meta is doing it the way they do a lot of stuff. They're running it in a couple of other countries first before they bring it here, before they bring it to like the UK. But my gut tells me that this is going to be a huge feature for them, because so many people use it. And if you're like, if you are, if you're Sam's Club and you want to send out a massive message to a lot of people, well, you can, what can you do right now? You can do email, you can do a text message, you could put it out on Twitter, and now you may be able to put things out on, WhatsApp channels. So I want to get you guys' take on that. What do you think, as far as because of what's going on at Twitter, is now the time, to strike while the iron is hot, so to speak?
Well, yes, but at the same time, I guess the social part of it is what I'm having a problem with, because it's not really social in the sense that Twitter is, right? When a Sam's Club puts out a message, I can interact with Sam's Club. Now, whether they reply, whether or not they retweet it, or whatever the case may be, that's their business. But I can talk to Sam's Club or talk about Sam's Club with other people who respond to the message. We have a social conversation. This is just like a broadcast message, right? So it's still kind of messagey, if that's a word. So we'll have to see how how the users interact with that for it to be, beneficial enough for these companies to put them out in the first place. If they're just putting out messages, but they can't really track how much, I don't know, engagement, response, whatever the case may be, versus just people opening it, is that going to give enough metrics for these companies to be like, all right, well, this is something that benefits us? If they just putting out messages and some dude or some person or AI is sitting behind here trying to put this stuff out, but they're not getting any sort of, they can't track the feedback, then what good is it? So that's something that I have to think about.
I just think, like, stop trying to make fetch happen. I mean, I don't know if y'all watch, have ever seen Mean Girls, but it's just like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's like, this is WhatsApp is what it is. Like, you did not need to do all of this stuff when you already have two other perfectly good platforms to do all of this stuff. I cannot stand when companies kludge up, things that work perfectly fine with more features, and it's just a money grab when you already are $1 billion. Like, it's just stop trying to make fetch happen. That's all I have to say.
So I am not standing for Meta, Facebook, and WhatsApp at all. I will say this because I use WhatsApp more than I use SMS, because I have a large friend and family group who use it, and I have family members who they're back in the States now, but they used to live overseas, so that's how I communicated with them. And so I use it a lot. All of this new stuff that they put in there, I don't want to say obfuscate is the word I'm looking for, but
That's
if you're not looking for all the additional stuff, it just works like it's always worked. And it's like, oh, wow, that's cool. I didn't know they do that. And then I don't think about it again. And then it's gone. It's not like right there in your face. They are very careful with not overwhelming their users and turning it in. Like when you look at, I don't know if either of you have ever looked at WeChat, there's like 1,947,000 buttons in there. And it's like, and it can be overwhelming. I think that Meta is purposefully making sure that they don't do that with, with WhatsApp. So that's just an observation. I don't really care one way or the other what they do with it, but I do think that this could be big, because anything that WhatsApp does, remember, you got 2 billion people logging in every month. I
get it, but still.
So, I mean, 2 billion people a month. So let's just say that out of that 2 billion people, they just get 10% that actually like this feature. You're talking about 200 million people who are doing that's half of Twitter.
True, but like and it be profitable or beneficial for the WhatsApp and or the businesses that decide to use these channels is like I said, a whole different thing. Because there's a lot of people who could like it, but if I'm paying WhatsApp, Tech Jawn is paying WhatsApp whatever it is to send out these channels, and we can't track whether or not the people are using it or not, then it's like, well, what's the point?
So here's my thought on that. And I knew we were going to go here. I don't believe for a minute that Meta is not working on making this thing just like a Twitter chat or Twitter thread. I feel I'd be willing to bet that they are working on that technology. They're just not rolling it out first. It's like, we're going to slow move it. We don't need to be Twitter tomorrow. Let's just have channels today, or whenever they actually roll this out. And they're just going to see, are people using it? How are people using it? What is the feedback? What are people saying that they want, in relation to this? Okay, well, let's go ahead and turn that feature on that we didn't even tell anybody about. Let's go ahead and turn that feature on that we didn't even tell anybody about, and then see how that works.
And then they're going to do just like Instagram, and it go from WhatsApp sending messages to videos or something like that, because they trying to just do stuff. And that goes back to Stephanie's point, trying to kludge in other things because they see what other companies are doing. And it's kind of like, all right, well, is it WhatsApp or is it just whatever everybody else is doing?
I have no doubt that Meta is going to do whatever they can do to maximize the amount of money that they're making. So if it's working and they're making money from it, that's what they're going to do. We've seen them in the past when they decided, on a course of action and people revolted. Oh, hold up. Let's change up. Let's maybe not do that today. Let's rewrite the language and let's come back. I think that'll be the case here. They're ultimately are we making more money by doing this than we aren't? Are we, are people really upset with what we're doing as we're making the money? Or are they not? And, when they figure out what that right balance is, I think that, always for them is how much money can we make for ourselves and our shareholders?
No.
So y'all, this last story we're going to talk about this evening. And I'm like, Steph, how do you always be finding stuff that's happening in my backyard? but it is
It's happening everywhere. It's
It
happening
is.
in
It's happening
Atlanta.
everywhere.
but it's
Yeah.
bad here. It's like we see this stuff on the news all the time. So let me tell the people we're talking about. Stephanie, this is your title here. Is tech to blame for the Kia boys? So so I'll bring you in here in a second. But long story short, there are a lot of Kias out there, and Hyundais too, that it is not terribly difficult to steal these cars. It's not hot wiring them. It's basically just busting off the steering column, taking a
Old
USB
school
cord.
carjacking.
Yeah, old school. You literally just need a flathead screwdriver, bust off the steering column, crack open the starter, and then flip a switch with a USB cable, and the car starts up, and you drive it away and joyride it. They fixed it for I think anything 2022 and later, but there's a whole lot of Kias out there that are 2021 back that I believe the problem started with 2012s or something like that. So it's been happening for a minute. But it's right here in my backyard. This is like South Linden. I used to live right next door to that when I first moved to Columbus. And what I would say about that area is I can see why it would be happening there, but but it's like, come on now, Kia. It's like you don't even have to. I looked at a video of how easy this is to do.
It's disturbingly easy.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. My mom has a Kia, and she's so paranoid now, and she's like, my car. I'm like, thankfully we still live in a neighborhood that is not the worst in the world. But they are just so easy to steal that I don't even think neighborhood matters at this point, because people are just taking advantage of how easy they are to hotwire.
You got to go. People had to go back and get the
club. Yeah, you had to go back to the club.
And you know what? I never knew. It's like, man, why all these Johns got clubs in them like that? But that's the reason why, because it is so easy. I can't remember. It was a GM car back in the day. We're talking about in the 80s, but you literally could just bust the steering column off, bust out the where you put your key into the ignition, you bust that off, and then you put your screwdriver in it and just turn it, and it would be like you were turning the key and it starts up. That's not what's happening here. These are cars that literally are push button start. You have a fob to get in with the car. These guys, I'm assuming gals too, have just figured out, oh, if you just do this is how you can manually start the car. And all you need is a screwdriver. And some of them ain't even trying to steal the car to do anything with it. They just joyriding, so they'll just bust the windows out and get in and do it.
I would venture to say most of them aren't stealing the car for parts or as some larger part of some auto theft ring, national,
which would be smart, but
right. They say that the average age, they say, of these quote unquote Kia boys is from 12 to 15. So these are young children, basically, with too much time on their hands and access to the internet. And let me preface this whole thing by saying, ultimately people are responsible for their own actions. Parents obviously have a role to play in this as well. When you're talking about children as young as 12 doing this. However, there are a couple things when I said is tech to blame for the Kia boys. There are a couple of reasons I posed that question. The first one was because Kia should not have made these cheap ass cars that are this easy to.
They already knew it was an issue, because in Canada the law states that no, you have to put a governor or something. They had to put a piece of technology.
It's
kill switch in there to keep this from happening.
Switch on the Kia and Hyundai, in their effort to make as cheap a freaking car as possible, decided to leave that one, potentially life-saving feature out of this vehicle, and they should be. They should take some of the ownership of this, horrible trend on themselves for doing that. You know what I mean? There's not really an excuse for why in America they don't have that same feature on the vehicles in this country as they do everywhere else on the planet. And it's, you can go, and no one should be able to go into a car with a USB cable and start that damn car. I'm sorry, you just shouldn't be able to do that. And so I'm putting the blame for that particular piece of technology squarely at the foot of Kia and Hyundai. Two, social media, man. It's just like
it's addictive.
It is, and
it's like a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that, you know, these are the and you know, TikTok, because they obviously TikTok is the platform of choice right now for these young people. And TikTok did make a good point in that, you know, they're not necessarily videotaping themselves stealing the cars. They're videotaping themselves in the cars, driving around with the mask on and the music blaring and all the rest of that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
so TikTok has no way to actually verify that the car is stolen. So they can't actually take the video down necessarily because it doesn't actually violate their terms of service. However, the general atmosphere
Yep.
around social media and what
Yep.
social media does to young minds
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is a problem now, and
Yep.
it's a problem
Hmm.
that has gotten out of hand. It's a problem that we cannot put back, a genie that we cannot get back in the bottle. And it's going to be it's a problem that we aren't going to be able to legislate. It is going to be on these companies themselves to do something
Mm-hmm.
to fix this, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so some of this, like I said, at the end of the day, these kids busted in these cars themselves, but some of this is on Kia and Hyundai, and some of this is on social media as well, because they've created this environment
Yep.
that breeds this type of behavior and rewards this type of behavior and encourages copycat behavior of the same type. And you're talking about a 12-year-old. You cannot expect a 12-year-old to have the good sense to not do some shit they saw on social media that they saw somebody else get 500,000 views for.
Exactly,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Because
So,
my thing is, and what I want to make sure is, of course, these Kia boys is cars, and it's and you that added extra amount of danger because they are maybe can't drive or they're doing dumb
right.
stuff for a cloud or whatever the
And
case
there
may
are
be.
children being
But
killed behind this
but
too.
but I exactly, but I also don't want there to be a stigma to where there's a certain type of kid out doing this, and we look at these kids and be like, "Oh, they're terrible." When like Wayne makes a good point, if it ain't kids, it was Tide Pods,
Right.
So
Right.
Hmm.
I
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that same
Right.
sort of
Keep that
blanket
same
concern.
energy. Keep that same energy.
Exactly, when
Yes.
when
So
these yeah.
there is a thing with the I mean, they're literally calling them the Kia boys, and they're labeling them like it's a gang. This is not like this is one gang. This is a social media challenge
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
is just
Basically, it has
it's
gotten
just a
out of
felony.
hand.
It
It
gets
just
just
right,
getting
just
out of
happens
hand
to
and
be a
it's a felony.
felony. Right.
And here's the other thing. Like I look at the story and it's like they are talking about South Linden, Columbus, basically. That is an issue there. But I went out and I looked, and so when I try to find the videos, oh, I would say that 80-90% of the videos that I saw today as I'm looking at this story, they ain't look like me. They ain't look like Terrance.
Well,
They did not look like you. 80-90%. Few did, but like I said, I probably watched 10, 12 of them. I think two, they look like us. So there's a stigma to this, as well.
It's
Like I said,
social media. It's
yeah,
not necessarily socioeconomic background.
no,
It's not any of these things that
it's
people try to
kids
attribute to these type of
kids
activities.
wanting to do shit for clout. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like I said, we are at a tipping point right now when it comes to social media where I don't have the answer, you know what I mean? But something needs to be done about, because the behavior is only going to get worse and it's only going to escalate. To Wayne's point, if eating damn laundry detergent didn't deter these kids, you know what I mean? I don't really
my
know what
goodness, my
will.
goodness,
It's
man.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I hate to sound like the old lady on the lawn, but I
Mm-hmm.
talk to these kids on the regular, and I know how important it is for them
And
to
it's
be
infatuating.
accepted and to feel,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was telling, I just did just a completely sidebar. I just did a segment for TMZ. They're putting out a kind of little mini documentary series about TikTok and how dangerous it can be. So I was kind of their expert. I just recorded it
TMZ
recently.
putting
I
out
know,
a thing
right,
about the
right,
dangers of
right,
TikTok.
right.
Okay, I'm
Do you
okay.
see the
All right,
irony here?
all
Wow,
right, all right.
wow.
But
Continue.
I was telling the producer, I talk to kids all the time, telling her about Till Death You Tweet, and I was telling her about how the kids just having me follow them back is such a big deal for them because I'm verified on Instagram. The idea that they would have somebody verified following them is the biggest deal in the world. They get so excited and so hyped from that little thing. I can't imagine what the dopamine levels in their brain shoot up
A couple
to
hundred
Mhm.
thousand
when
people.
they go
Mhm.
viral. You know what I mean? When they
Mhm.
do something that goes viral, it really is a thing for them. And I just don't think adults are taking it seriously enough, because I think we still think, oh, it's just social media. What's the big deal? And I be trying to tell adults
Big
it's
deal.
it's
It's a
their
big deal.
life. It's their entire life.
And
And
low
we
key,
got to start doing something about it.
and low key, high key, these parents get that same dopamine shot because
You
they'll take pictures
you
and you'll
right.
Mhm.
wait for 5 minutes and you'll come right on back to that post to see how many people like it. Now
You're
that
right.
may not encourage you to take it to the next level or nothing like
Right.
that. But come on, don't act like
Don't
parents
act like
killing
we
me,
ain't
acting
doing
like
it too.
I mean,
we
Right.
just
don't
think about
understand
this.
what's going on.
Right. Right.
Now, we all think it's ridiculous, but down in Florida, they banning books out of school left and right. And why are they doing that? Because they don't want the things that are written in the books to sway a young mind. That is what they're saying. Now, in my opinion, the things that are written in most of these books that they are banning actually should, these young children should
Right.
read, so they actually can make some opinions about how the world should be through their own eyes. But when you think about that, kids ain't reading books like they on social media. So just like you can sway minds with books, what do
can
you
sway
think
it
that their
yep.
peers are doing in social media? Yeah,
It
go
is.
ahead,
It's
son.
crazy.
I bet you won't eat that Tide Pod. I bet you won't. I
Mhm.
do what I do. How do we know that this is what's happening? Because we can see the videos of it happening.
Because we can see the videos.
Yeah, we can see the videos of it.
It
happening.
is. It is. I just, like I said, I wanted to put this out there because we do tend to demonize children when things like this start trending and kind of take over, and these kids, and these kids just ain't raised right, and
No.
their parents should be fined, and you should throw the parents in jail too, and like I'm sure there's some combination of all of these things that is true, but two things can be true at the same time. These kids need to get off these phones, and the parents need to be more involved in all of that.
Mhm.
But also technology plays a role in what is happening as well. And we need
Mhm.
to start demanding that these companies, hold themselves accountable for this shit too.
Mhm.
All
Agreed.
right, Joe. So I'm looking at the
I'm
clock,
off my
y'all.
soapbox.
No, it was a good soapbox. That was a good discussion. That was a great discussion. And we are at the top of the hour, past the top of the hour. We do not have a Patreon. We do not have a new patron this week. I mean, we didn't get any raises this week. So I would just remind people once again, if you would like to support the Tech John, head over to patreon.com/the Tech John. And if you sign up over there, you get access to a bunch of different benefits, and you help us bring the tech to you the way we bring it to you. So with that, Tech Life Steph, why don't you go ahead and tell the people how they can get at you?
You can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph, and check out my website at stephaniehumphrey.com.
Oh, I was reading something else. That was me. And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we are also at the Tech John on all the things. So come holler at us wherever you holler. Till we meet again in a week's time. Peace.
Peace.